Today's show is brought to you by Audible, and right now you can get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/joined-up. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle or MP3 player. Thanks for tuning in to the Joined Up Writing Podcast, a weekly show featuring interviews with fantastic authors sharing their personal stories on how and why they write. There's hints and tips for aspiring writers and great book reviews from top bloggers. Follow us on Twitter at JU Podcast. Right, cue the cheesy theme tune.
Put down your pen and stop your typing. Grab yourself a drink, 'cause it's Joined Up Writing. The Epilogue.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Joined Up Writing Podcast, and it's the Epilogue, our quick listen in between the episodes featuring an extra question or topic not covered in our main guest interviews. This week it's Marnie Riches, and if you haven't listened to her full interview, I highly recommend you check it out at joinedupwriting.co.uk, or even better, subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify or wherever else you can get your podcasts from. So just to remind you, Marnie is the author of the award-winning best-selling George Mackenzie crime thrillers, as well as her new Manchester series about the criminal underworld of the UK's second city. Her latest book in that series, The Cover-Up, was just released and is available from all your favourite booksellers. So for our bonus round, I asked Marnie about self-doubt and how it had had an effect on her early attempts to write. Okay, Marnie, thanks for staying around for the epilogue. A little bonus question we've got for you. So, for this, we touched on it briefly in the main interview, and you kind of mentioned that when you were at university, I think it was, you wrote that first novel, your fantasy, your kind of ode to Tolkien or whatever, and you shelved it for 17 years or whatever it was before you revisited it, and I think that was something that you regretted. I know you went back to it and you said, it was a load of crap and all that kind of stuff. But I think I read somewhere else that, you kind of regretted the fact that you, in terms of your writing and writing novels, that you kind of shelved that for quite a long period of time. I do
regret not having persisted, actually, with that Dutch novel back in the day, because I was 19 when I wrote it. If I'd persisted, I would have had... I could have got published a lot quicker because, of course, the problem with writing when you're younger is that you've got less to say. But if it's fantasy, it's not such a big deal. I mean, Christopher Paolini did very, very well with his Inheritance cycle books, and he was only young, and he was a wannabe Tolkien. And I enjoyed his books very much, even though they're a bit slated occasionally for being derivative. But I enjoyed them, and my daughter enjoyed them. And I really should have kept going then. And I think it was a lot easier to get published and do really well 20 years ago
than it is now. Do you think a lot of that had to do? I mean, obviously life happens and stuff gets in the way and all that kind of thing. But do you think a lot of that had to do at the time with maybe self-doubt and maybe not believing that it was something that you could do? I know, obviously, you ended up, going to a fantastic university and all that kind of stuff. But from, your own admission, you started off in quite humble beginnings, and you've got the working class thing that you're probably trying to shake off. I can, relate to that myself and all that kind of thing. So did that all kind of play a part for you?
It did, yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a student just feeling like I desperately wanted a creative career. And I did try to get also into television or the music industry. And I was in a band, and I did get a job at music publishers in Soho and tried to get this career off the ground. But I always had this working class thing of I couldn't afford to take risks and I couldn't afford to be unemployed. And the thing with being a writer is you do have to take a leap of faith. And you do have some lean times unless you're one of the lucky buggers who gets a massive debut advance. And I didn't have any connections whatsoever, even though I went to Cambridge. The careers facility there is brilliant if you want to go into the city, and terrible if you want to do anything else. And I couldn't rely on nepotism because my mother was a cleaner and my dad was, a guitar vocalist in labour clubs and an occasional joiner. So there was no helping hand in that respect. There was encouragement from my mum. But, Mater and Pater couldn't hook me up with a literary agent contact or, someone in telly, a producer who could give me a job. So, the openings that I got, I had to get for myself. And I realised that the creative industries are precarious employers. And so when my college offered me a job to go and fundraise back in Cambridge for a year, and it paid, and seemed to be a path to a bona fide career, I was too scared and too working class and chippy not to take the job. Do you know what I mean? I could not afford to take risks, which I think a middle class kid from a nice wealthy background would, which is why the brilliant internships in a lot of publishing houses get snapped up by quite wealthy kids because they can afford to do it, and that's why there's a dearth of working class and minority ethnic kids in publishing, and they're trying to address that, but they're only going to address it when they start paying people to do these internships and paying them well enough to live in London. So for me, it was a risk thing. And I only went back to writing when I got to the stage in my life when I was middle-aged with little kids, and I'd already not been fundraising for a while and had been doing houses up instead, and my ex-husband was doing well at work, and I could take that leap of faith and give myself that time to make a real go of it, and I was old enough and wise enough to take the risk of jacking in the day job, because I had a part-time fundraising job, and just going for the writing. And I didn't do that until I'd got an advance for my Time Hunters books anyway, because I was very risk averse. And it's funny really, but now that I'm divorced and really I'm on my own financially and bringing two kids up, I take more risks now than I did when I was married. But that comes with age and confidence and wisdom that you can make a go of it if you graft hard enough.
And if you could go back to your 19-year-old self now, would you give her any different advice?
I'd go back and say, stop listening to your mother's advice and stop listening to everyone else's, well, I would do such and such. And I'd say, follow your gut instinct, which I was shocking at doing when I was younger, and which I do much more now.
Aren't we all, though?
Yeah, and I'd say trust yourself. Stop listening to naysayers and other people who lack courage, because I was a very courageous kid, else I wouldn't have got to Cambridge in the first place, and I wouldn't have got out of my horrible council estate and gone on to better things. But I could have gone much further, much younger. And it was because I think fear of failure keeps poor kids down. And I would tell my younger self to just feel the fear and do it anyway, because of course when you're young and you haven't got kids and a mortgage, that is the time to take the risks.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm flying by the seat of my pants now. Now is not the time to take the risks, but now's the time I'm doing it, because I didn't do it then. And you pay for it eventually.
The most important thing is that you're doing it, though, you have been doing it over the last few years. So you're trying to redress the balance now, and you're not just trying; you are redressing the balance. Obviously, you're doing what you love. You're getting books out into the world, and you're doing it. So that's great.
Hooray for midlife crisis! It's not midlife crisis; it's midlife awakening. Because
exactly,
you do get to a point, I think, and this is why a lot of writers don't start till they're 40, where you think, right, I am miserable, and this is not improving. I am therefore going to take that risk now, because the consequences are more misery till death.
Yeah. So your message is, regardless whether you're 19 or 99, it's never too late. Crack on and get on with it.
Yeah, but be prepared to do the work because it is really hard work. I've never worked so hard in my life, and I'm regularly doing 100-hour weeks.
Mm-hmm. To make it work. Yeah, that's
Yeah, but I'm really glad I've done it, and it has worked for me, but not without a lot of graft and persistence and self-belief. But it's made me a much tougher and more confident person.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully, I mean, that's really inspiring advice. So hopefully there's other people out there that are listening to this and, will take their own risks, as you say, and put the work in and get on with it.
Well, if you don't try,
you've got nobody else to blame but yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's great. Thanks a million for that, and thanks for hanging.
Best of luck to the other writers out there.
Yeah. Thanks.
And, you can if you think you can.
Absolutely. Thanks. Well, thanks for hanging around as well for our little bonus question, and once again, good luck with all the new projects coming up.
Thanks very much, Wayne. I really appreciate it.
So that pretty much wraps up this week's show, but before I go, I wanted to remind you that this is your show, and one of the things I'm going to be launching in the next show actually is Listener Spotlight. It's a new segment that I'm launching, and I'm asking you to just send in maybe little things about your projects or what you're up to. Maybe you've got a new collection coming out or a new book, or you just want a quick shout out about something that you're doing, and I'm happy to shine a light on that. And so it's going to be something that I do on an occasional basis based on how many of you send me stuff through. So you can tweet us at JU Podcast, or you can email or leave a comment at joinedupwriting.co.uk, or you can head to our Facebook page, which is Joined Up Writing Podcast, and I'd love to hear from you. Don't forget, the biggest favour you can do for us is to share the show with at least one of your friends, and make sure you subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever else you can find your podcasts. iTunes in particular, it takes seconds to leave a quick review, and it actually helps other people find the show as well. So that pretty much wraps up this week. Thanks for listening to the Joined Up Writing Podcast. Let's get joined up. I'm Wayne Kelly. Happy reading and writing, and I'll see you next time.